Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. While the world waits for a physical MMA fight between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, we're being treated with an online fight first. The crazy South African and the subdued robot man go head-to-head in the social media space. The drama really started back in October of 2022, when Twitter just kept tripping over ever since Elon Musk took over. Soon, problems with Twitter's verification was causing chaos in the real world. Stock markets became confused. They could not tell the difference between the Twitter account of a real company or just some troll online. Individual stocks flash crashed as bizarre announcements were made by trolls pretending to be the PR department of a company. Twitter also saw a haphazard firing process, lawsuits, bots, advertisers leaving, and just generally, nobody really knew what was going on. But over in the other corner, Zuckerberg was watching all of this closely, and he was waiting. You see, as the Twitter chaos was unfolding, many users switched to other microblogging sites like Mastodon, Tumblr, and Hive Social. Meta employees saw this as a golden opportunity, and in January 2023, they began developing an app which they called Project 92. Project 92 would later become Threads, and on June 9th, 2023, in a meeting with employees, Meta's Chief Product Officer Chris Cox would say, quote, "We've been hearing from creators and public figures who are interested in having a platform that is sanely run." End quote. It was a stab at Elon. On the 5th of July, Threads is launched. The public was skeptical, but to the shock of everyone, within just one day, Threads reaches 30 million users. For context, Twitter took 4 years to reach the same number. Elon was furious and decides to sue Mark. July 6th, 2023, Zuckerberg does something unexpected. After not tweeting in 11 years, he taunts Mark with a meme. Within 5 days, Threads would have 100 million users, about 30% of Twitter's user base, and at the same time, Twitter's traffic began tanking. After this, Musk begins berating Zuckerberg on Twitter. It looks like things are getting heated, but what is all the fuss about? Is Threads really that big of a threat to Twitter? Obviously, these 100 million signups on Threads is all just hype right now, but what happens next? What about the risk of a meta monopoly? And what about security concerns? In this episode, we'll take a look. But also in this story, there's a detail that I haven't heard many other people talk about. Meta plans to use an open, decentralized technology. You could theoretically write a post on Facebook, see it on Twitter, or comment on an Instagram post and see it on TikTok. In short, apps become nothing but an interface skin to view social interactions. This is the biggest major change in social media in 15 years. But just because the technology is open doesn't mean that we should trust Zuckerberg. It's all very interesting, and we'll get into that later. Threads grew quickly. Within several hours, the platform amassed over 2 million users. After one day, it reached 30 million. And at this point, this made Threads the most rapidly downloaded app in history, surpassing the previous record set by ChatGPT. At the time of writing, Threads has over 100 million users, about 30% of what Twitter has. So the real reason for this fast adoption is not the fact that Threads is a better app than Twitter. It's more so that Zuckerberg has done something very clever. Twitter had to grow its user base from scratch, but with Threads, people who use Instagram can simply just sign up to Threads using their existing account, and they can bring along their followers and verification. Getting people to download and sign up for a brand new social media platform is hard. Instagram has 2.3 billion users. Launching Threads through Instagram reduces a lot of friction. So to sum up the culture on Threads, it's pretty boring, at least when compared to Twitter. It seems like Threads is controlled and on guardrails. There's not much of that random chaos that you see on Twitter, whether that be wacky entertaining posts or bots and spam. On Threads, Zuckerberg has stated, quote, "The goal is to keep it friendly as it expands. I think it's possible and will ultimately be the key to success. That's one reason why Twitter never succeeded as much as I think it should have, and we want to do it differently. In the end, we could see both platforms coexisting, but for different reasons. Twitter is more edgy and chaotic, whereas Threads, once established and with more features, is a calmer, more corporate place for discourse. And also, thanks to Instagram, Threads will have the unique advantage of a generally younger audience and an audience that may come from geographical regions that don't use Twitter. As for Threads right now, it functions solidly. It works smooth and is familiar. However, it is missing a lot of features. There's no trending news, no DMs, and no strong recommendation algorithm, a feature that will be essential to its long-term success, but it's still early days. So who could come out on top here? Well, looking at corporate history, it's not looking good for Elon. Elon and Zuckerberg come from opposite ends of business. Elon's experience lies in delivering physical products. It's more of a mechanical engineering and mechatronics vein. On the other hand, since 2004, Zuckerberg has basically grown up building social networks. He sure likes to mine our data, but one thing he has got in spades is experience. On the other hand, Elon Musk's inexperience in this area is starting to show. Twitter is having a hard time monetizing.
A report by Insider Intelligence is predicting a massive slump in Twitter's ad revenue by the end of the year.
To make up for it, longer tweets, longer videos, and verification are all now behind paywalls. Even TweetDeck is behind a paywall. This kind of behavior from Twitter is in line with being a monopoly. They had the biggest platform in this space, so they could bump up costs at will, and users had virtually no choice but to take it. Even though some did try to move to smaller similar platforms, there wasn't enough of a network effect to challenge Twitter. Now with Meta and Threads in the picture, this is all going to change. Zuck has led a team whose expertise is in platform monetization, and Meta may be able to figure out what Twitter couldn't. Although Threads will not have ads until 1 billion users, Meta already has a good and established relationship with advertising clients. Threads is also seeing more user engagement than Twitter, which bodes well for advertisers. Even though Twitter does have a new CEO, Linda Yaccarino, Musk would still tweet business decisions that would make investors nervous. Without warning, he decided to limit the number of tweets that users can see.
Many Twitter users reported problems accessing the site today after Elon Musk said he's putting a limit on the number of tweets users can read per day.
Elon said that this was to stop bot scraping, but there might be more to this. Back in March, Musk refused to pay $70 million in fees to Amazon Web Services, the company that provides Twitter with the infrastructure to run. Twitter is also being fined $100,000 because Elon isn't paying the company's rent, as he believes that it's not worth it in San Francisco. So if the trends are anything to go by, and Amazon Web Services isn't being paid again, it's possible that they've been throttling data usage for Twitter, and this could be the real reason behind limiting the views for tweets. So all in all, it looks like, purely from a business technical ability, Zuck seems to have the upper hand here. But again, anything could happen. So let's take a look at this lawsuit.
Twitter is reportedly threatening to sue Meta over its new Threads platform. News outlets say a lawyer for Twitter has sent a letter to Mark Zuckerberg.
After the initial success of Threads, Musk made his thoughts clear. Quote, "Competition is fine, cheating is not." In a legal letter to Zuckerberg, Twitter would accuse them of, quote, "systematic, willful, and unlawful misappropriation of Twitter's trade secrets and other intellectual property." It's going to be a hard case, and according to Polk Wagner, a law professor at the University of Pennsylvania, quote, "Twitter also needs to show that Threads took information that was economically valuable and which the company had taken responsible efforts to keep secret." Twitter had also claimed that Meta had taken ex-employees who, quote, "had and continue to have access to Twitter's trade secrets and other highly confidential information," end quote. And they called Threads a, quote, "copycat app." Ironically, Musk had previously tweeted that the geniuses that he fired should be able to find jobs elsewhere. A Meta spokesperson, Andy Stone, would rebut, quote, "No one on the Threads engineering team is a former Twitter employee. That's just not a thing," end quote. So in this whole story, Zuckerberg is coming out looking like the more measured one here. It does seem like after his hearings and podcast appearances, the general public's impression of him has improved. But we shouldn't forget Cambridge Analytica, and how Facebook collected personal data from millions of users, some of which was used for political advertising. This isn't to mention the countless other scandals that Meta has been embroiled in. And also, around 32% of the world's population is on Instagram, and soon every world leader could be on Threads. Meta has the GDP and influence over populations that most governments would dream of. Meta Platforms knows your personality, political stances, who you're friends with, all to serve you better ads. But this knowledge and data can be abused in many ways, sold for profit, or to cause political influence. To add to this, former Facebook staff have previously warned that Zuckerberg has way too much controlling power within his companies. Threads has so much tracking and user profiling that it goes beyond what's allowed by EU data laws. That should tell you something. Okay, so here's the really interesting bit. While everyone is talking about the massive sign-up rate of Threads, there's another story going on here. Meta plans to use a forgotten 2018 decentralized web technology called ActivityPub. So, what is ActivityPub? David Pierce from The Verge sums it up perfectly. Quote, "It's a technology through which social networks can be made interoperable. Decentralized social media is to completely separate the user interface from the underlying data. Anytime you sign up for a new social app, you wouldn't have to rebuild your audience or re-find all your friends. Your whole following and following list come with you. Those things should be part of the internet, not part of an app. You'll be able to post a picture on Instagram, and I could see it and comment on it from the Twitter app. Different apps will have different strengths and weaknesses, different moderation policies, and creator tools, but you'll have the same set of followers and follow the same accounts no matter which platform you use." Mike McHugh, the CEO of Flipboard, told The Verge, quote, "I was there in the early days of the web, and this whole thing with ActivityPub is as big a deal as HTML was back then. This is the single biggest opportunity I've seen for the web since the dawn of the web." End quote. This is the biggest change in social media in 15 years. The new wave of social media companies that use this kind of decentralized protocol are collectively known as the Fediverse. Unfortunately, Meta may use the technology for their own gain.
The really only thing about Threads that has me interested is their ActivityPub integration, so that people on Instagram Threads can interact with people on the Fediverse, something like Mastodon. I don't see Facebook approaching this in a way that's designed to break down walls and create a more open internet where platforms get to speak to each other for the benefit of the end user, you, which is the whole point of ActivityPub. Alternatively, I think Facebook will more likely want to use ActivityPub as free content for its own walled garden platform. Many people like myself are pretty much only on Mastodon, and if someone like myself refuses to open a Threads account, it won't really impact Facebook, since people can still theoretically follow my Mastodon from those threads.
I think this ActivityPub aspect is an important area of the story to keep your eye on. If Threads is successful and using ActivityPub, Zuckerberg theoretically could create as many clones of different standalone apps that he wants with ease. The CEO of Mastodon, a Twitter competitor, who also uses ActivityPub, thinks that Meta may embrace ActivityPub only to destroy it.
I think the internet is like resetting. It feels to me more like 2011 than whatever we thought last year was going to be. Right, all the big publishers are focusing now on email and their direct homepages, which is fascinating. The social networks are splintering. We're seeing actual market share changes. None of this stuff was happening a year ago. Okay, maybe I have like 3 or 4 interest-based places that I go instead of one monolithic place. That's why decentralized social is interesting. And then for these companies, what makes it attractive is they get to farm out content moderation. They get to say to Congress or whoever else, look at all this competition. You can bring your own content moderation algorithm to the mix. We're only in charge if you want us to be. And I think that is utterly appealing to all of them.
Cambridge Analytica was a warning. Today's social media companies are much bigger than they were then, and Zuckerberg is on his way to a social media app monopoly, with Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, and now Threads all under his belt. If for any reason Meta was persuaded to block a trending topic or sway popular opinion, it's just that little bit easier for them to do now. What happens next is anyone's guess, but this should be looked at closely. As for Twitter, it's unlikely that it will die, but the game has changed. From a business perspective, there's a lot of new risk that's built up. If Elon says something crazy that offends people, or something on Twitter breaks, users can now just jump to Threads. It's going to be a slow grind, but the potential is there for a death by 1,000 cuts scenario for Twitter. So what's the final, most probable outcome? Well, in my opinion, I think that once the initial hype dies down from Threads, we could see both platforms coexist, just with a different culture, different users, and different use cases. In the end, the biggest loser of all of this is going to be Linda, the new CEO of Twitter. She's definitely going to have her work cut out. And as a side point, imagine if all of this was just advertising for the upcoming boxing match between Musk and Zuckerberg. That would be pretty funny if that was true. Anyway, that's about it from me. Thanks for watching. If you do want to see an extended discussion on the podcast, check it out in the link below. If you want to see anything else on science, technology, business, and a whole bunch of other stuff, have a look around Cold Fusion. There's plenty of stuff on here. Okay, so my name is Dagogo, and you've been watching Cold Fusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.